Hi, just another quick one. Before we get started, it's fair use. It's for educational purposes, to educate people about the burden of proof and the logical fallacy of shifting the burden of proof. I know it only applies to the person. I'm not a person. I'm a man, an individual. I'm very much alive. Thank you very much. I know it says philosophy of religion at the top here, but just ignore that bit. It doesn't matter. It's just it's the same. Burden of proof is the same, even if it's not to do with religion. It's to do with anything else. We can look up the burden of proof fallacy, shifting the burden of proof fallacy, and it'll tell you exactly the same as what it tells you here, no matter where you get it from. It doesn't. The philosophy of religion bit doesn't really come into it. But you will get some religious connotations in this. Just have to ignore, just take them bits out and think globe or whatever. Yeah, any claim that's being made to you. It's from the City University of New York. It says, why is it that few people seem to have problems with the burden of proof when it comes to the innocence or guilt of a murder suspect? Well, that's the burden of proof in law, and that's different to the burden of proof in other things. So. But then cannot apply the same exact logic to more esoteric issues such as the existence of ghosts, gods and the like. Massimo Pigliucci, 2010. Most people as young children appear to have a common sense understanding of the burden of proof. When young people hear a claim being made, and it is in their minds and experience an extraordinary claim being made, quite often the response is one of asking for something to support the claim. The most common retorts are along the lines of, prove it. What makes you say that? Show me. Or something like, oh yeah. Somewhere along the way, too many individuals lose that sense and too often suspend their inclination to accept the principles underlying the burden of proof. And we've seen that a lot in this subject, where people are just not interested in the burden of proof. They try and shift the burden of proof constantly. Going a bit further, it is to be noted that not all people care to be considered as being rational or reasonable or willing to use their intellect as best as possible. We see that a lot as well. These people defending the heliocentric religion, they don't want to be, what they call it, they don't care to be considered as being rational, reasonable or willing to use their intellect, because they're not. Yeah. As best as possible, but for any individual who cares at all about being rational and using reason, then operating with the burden of proof rule of reason. And it's a bit here about miracle. You cannot claim that miracles exist unless someone proves they do not exist. You cannot claim that souls exist unless someone proves they do not exist. Same with angels and deities. The burden of proof, as presented below, applies to claims that are cognitive and empirical. The principle applies to claims about what exists or does not exist. The instances of circumstances that provide nuanced exceptions, see below, to the rule are so few and misleading to let it appear they nullify the rule. That is, it is far better to just state that the burden of proof is always on the claim that the globe exists, rather than on the claim that the globe does not exist. It is a fallacy to claim that the globe exists unless you prove that there is no globe. Are you listening to this? Heliocentric religion believers, globe earth believers. I will say that again. Yeah. Burden of proof is always on the claim that the globe exists, rather than on the claim that the globe does not exist. It is a fallacy to claim that the globe exists unless you prove that there is no globe. Yeah? So you say, no, well, the globe exists unless you prove that there is no globe. So prove the flat earth. Which is a loaded term which I don't like using, but for this instance I'm going to use it. But it's a loaded term, I don't like using it. What is improper is for an individual to claim that the globe exists, and when asked to prove it, then the individual who made the claim uses as a defence of the globe exists the next claim that no one has proven that the globe does not exist. Although we have loads of times, loads of observations and experiments and showing how these things work, scientific method and everything. We've shown it loads of times. There's loads of examples here online from different individuals that have done things. If an individual claims that the globe exists and is real, then the burden is on that person to supply some support for that claim. Some evidence or proof that others can and should examine before accepting it. Yeah. So if you get these people coming online or even in real life and they're saying, well, yeah, the globe exists, the globe's real, the globe exists, right? Then the burden of proof's on them to supply some support for that claim. Some evidence or proof that other people can go off and examine that evidence or proof before accepting it. Make sure it is real and it holds up to scrutiny and everything else, and it can be tested out by using the scientific method and being scientifically tested and everything. It is incorrect to think that the globe exists and is real until someone can prove that there is no globe. It is also wrong to think that just because you cannot prove that the globe exists, that does not mean that the globe does not exist and therefore the globe does exist. Yeah. Why is it that the burden is on the individual who makes the claim? Well, think whether or not it is a better way to proceed through life to accept anything and everything that people claim to be so. Experience should instruct every thinking individual that there is a high probability that not everything that people claim to be true is actually true. Some claims might be made with the claimant aware that the claim is not true, and some claims might be made with the claimant thinking that they are true, but being mistaken. As it is for most individuals not a very good idea to proceed through life based on beliefs that are false and thinking beliefs and claims to be true when they are not. Most individuals, and those who would use reason to guide them, will want some evidence and proof, and reasoning to support a claim being asserted to be true. So the burden is on those who make claims to offer reason and evidence in support of those claims. Shifting the burden of proof. The burden of proof is always on the individual making an assertion or proposition. Shifting the burden of proof, a special case of argumentum ad ignorantium, which is argument from ignorance, is the fallacy of putting the burden of proof on the individual who denies or questions the assertions being made. The source of the fallacy is the assumption that something is true unless proven otherwise. The individual making a negative claim cannot logically prove non-existence. And here's why. To know that the globe does not exist would require a perfect knowledge of all things. Omniscience. To attain this knowledge would require simultaneous access to all parts of the world and beyond, omnipresence. Therefore, to be certain of the claim that the globe does not exist, one would have to possess abilities that are non-existent. Obviously, mankind's limited nature precludes these special abilities. The claim that the globe does not exist is therefore unjustifiable. As logician Mortimer Adler has pointed out, the attempt to prove a universal negative is a self-defeating proposition. So basically it's saying that the burden of proof is not on us to prove that the globe does not exist, because that is a what they call it. It's proving that negative is a self-defeating proposition. Yeah. These claims are worldwide existential negatives. They are only a small class of all possible negatives. They cannot be established by direct observation because no single individual observer can cover the whole earth at one time in order to declare by personal authority that any globe doesn't exist. So basically, we can show that there's areas that are level, and we can show the physics of water and how we build and maintain pressure and how we build and maintain a vacuum and stuff like that. Everything else, we can show these things practically, and it goes against what we're told. right? But this is basically just saying that the burden of proof is not on us. It's not on people like me or you that's watching or anything else to prove that the globe doesn't exist. It's on the people defending the affirmative claim, people defending the globe. It's up to them to bring their proof, of their claim. And to me, I mean, it says they've got to be making the claim, but no, if they're there defending that claim, the burden's on them as well, because they've took their time out to come here onto our channels, my channel, your channel, whoever's watching this, to defend that claim. Yeah. So the burden is on them because they're there defending it. Burden of proof. From X, which is the assertion, is not yet disproved, therefore X. So from the globe, which is the assertion, is not yet disproved, therefore the globe's real, because we've not been disproved. But it has, countless times, in my opinion. But plenty of evidence and proof out there to show that it's not what they tell us it is, basically. But it's all hidden, you see, so not many people see it, and then we get all these paid trolls coming on and doing what they do. I mean, to try and sway people with emotional manipulation tactics and sophist arguments and all this sort of stuff, and logical fallacies and stuff. This is a fallacy. If X is unproven, then it is unproven and remains unproven until reason and evidence is provided or secured to establish the proof or high probability of the claim being true. And then it's about gods exists and that, and this is, of course, pink elephants inhabit Mars. We don't see them because they blend in. Can you prove otherwise? Or, of course God exists. Has anyone ever proved otherwise? Of course Santa Claus exists. No one has ever proved to my knowledge that Santa Claus does not exist. And if one were to fly to the North Pole and say, well, look, there's no toy factory there, a believer could argue, well, Santa Claus knew you were coming and moved his operations to the South Pole. Not that, I don't know if there's a South Pole. So you fly down to the south, no Santa Claus factory, toy factory there. So the believer would say, oh, he moved it back up to the north. You know what I mean? Moving the goalposts, Of course leprechauns exist. Has anyone else proved otherwise? Of course ghosts exist. Has anyone else proved otherwise? Of course yellow polka-dotted aliens exist. Has anyone else proved otherwise? And that's the same. Of course the globe exists. Has anyone else proved otherwise? No, because it's not on the burden of proof, like I said, it's on you. Proof of a negative claim. So you simply cannot prove general claims that are negative claims. One cannot prove that ghosts do not exist. One cannot prove that leprechauns too do not exist. One simply cannot prove a negative and general claim. Negative statements often make claims that are hard to prove because they make predictions about things we are in practice unable to observe in a finite time. For instance, there are no big green Martians means there were no big green Martians in this or any universe. Not that space and universe is not real, but you get the idea. And unlike your bathtub, it is not possible to look in every corner of every universe, thus we cannot completely test this proposition. We can just look around within the limits of our ability and our desire to expend time and resources on looking, and prove that where we have looked so far and within the limits of our knowing anything at all, there are no big green Martians. In such a case, we have proved the negative, but not the negative of the sweeping proposition in question, which should carry a proving n negative 1999 link there. It is possible to prove rather specific negative claims that are made with rather well-defined limits, if the area to be searched is a well-defined and of a reasonable size that permits searching, then a negative claim might be capable of being proven. For example, if one claims that there is no apple in the top desk drawer of a desk, then all one needs to do is open the top desk drawer, indicated in the claim, and examine it for its contents. Finding no apple therein would provide sufficient evidence under ordinary circumstances to verify or confirm the negative claim that there is no apple in the top desk drawer. In this regard, Irving Marmer Copy writes, "You can prove a specific negative claim by providing contradictory evidence. An example of a proof of a rather specific negative claim by contradictory evidence would be if someone were to claim that the one and only watch that you own is in the top drawer of the desk. You make the negative claim that it is not in the drawer, and you see it clearly on your wrist. There is no need to look in the drawer." Yeah? You can also prove specific negative claims when they involve known impossibilities. For example, if someone were to claim that the one and only moon that normally orbits the planet Earth, well, I won't call it a planet, but yeah, right, okay, was in the top desk drawer, you claim that the moon is not in the desk drawer, there would be no need to look inside the drawer because the mass of the moon would not fit inside such a space. And were its mass to be condensed, its mass would be far greater than the desk could support, where the desk made of ordinary Earth substances. So basically, they were saying that if someone says, "Oh, the moon's in that desk drawer, the top drawer of that desk," you could be like, "Well, no, it isn't." Do you know what I mean? You don't have to prove anything or anything else, because you know you're not going to fit a moon in a bloody drawer. You know what I mean? Or I've put your Mercedes in that top desk drawer. Well, I know you haven't, because it's a full size car. You're not going to fit that in a drawer. You know what I mean? You don't need to. You can also prove specific negative claims that can be rephrased as a positive claim. Someone claims that the lights are not on in room 442. That claim can be rephrased as claiming that the lights are off in room 442. The claim that you cannot prove a negative claim is itself a negative claim and will be a self-defeating statement, or a rhetorician were it not generally understood. Retortion, to be a limited claim. What is usually meant by the assertion that one cannot prove a negative claim is that it is not logical to insist on proof of claims or statements of the sort. There is no such thing as X that exists anywhere at all and at any time at all. Negative claims in the context of religion are very commonly of this form. And it's about religion, about deities and miracles. It's just about... But then you could say about, you cannot prove that there is no globe. You cannot prove that there are no planets or globes or whatever. Yeah. These claims are asserted by those holding belief in the existence of such things. They do not usually assert such criticisms against those who claim that there are no phenomena such as those not believed in by the defenders of the existence of a deity or miracles or the globe. Yeah, for example, believers in deities or miracles or the globe or the heliocentric model, yeah, do not criticise those who claim that there are no tooth fairies or that there are no leprechauns. Yeah, or they don't criticise people that say, "Well, there's no Santa Claus, there's no tooth fairies, there's no leprechauns." So why are they criticising us? You know what I mean? The theists appear to think that the critic of theism is claiming that there are no deities and that such a claim can be proven or has been proven, which is actually being claimed by most critics of the claims that there are deities or miracles, is that there is not sufficient evidence to establish the existence of a deity or a miracle, or that it has not been proven that there are deities or miracles. The burden of proof is on the claimant of the positive claim that an entity like the globe does exist. Yeah, the critic of the individual making the positive claim that the globe does exist is asking for evidence in support of that claim, and that the evidence be relevant and sufficient to warrant or support the claim. Yeah. The improvability of non-existence. fallacy of proving a negative. I'm not going to read all that because it means that if we don't... Rejecting the burden of proof. Like I said, I'll leave a link to this so you can come and read that. You can pause it. I'll go back a little bit and you can pause it a bit if you like. You can read this here. You can pause it and I'll scroll up a bit and read that there. I'm not going to read it all. You can pause it if you like and read this bit. There's no about variation argumentum ad ignorantium. I'm just going to go down to rejecting the burden of proof. There are those who will refuse to accept that the burden of proof rests with those making positive claims. They do want to claim that miracles exist, souls exist, angels exist, and deities exist, or the globe exists, until someone proves otherwise. Yeah? Those who behave in this manner are rejecting the use of reason. They want to believe that the globe is true, or that the globe exists, and to believe it without evidence or even against evidence to the contrary. They want to have their beliefs remain intact and not subject to refutation or to re-examination, for fear of needing to alter their beliefs. They rest their beliefs in the globe existing or in the globe being true, not on evidence and reason, but on faith, and even on blind faith. And when against reason and counter evidence, on willfully blind faith. Such behaviour is within the realm of religion and not at all acceptable amongst those who would pursue philosophical discourse, or who would ask that reason and evidence support claims. And there's some stuff here about some additional reading and that you can do. I might do this little bit here at the bottom in another video. I'll have a look at it and see if it's appropriate. About the logic of disproof and stuff, about premises and conclusions, syllogisms and stuff. Alright. Excuse me. Right, that'll do for this one, I think. I'm going to say thank you. Bye.